The sky over Blind Frog Ranch was overcast, heavy with the promise of rain. Clouds clung to the peaks of the Uinta Basin like ghosts watching from above. Jamie crouched beside the ATV, adjusting one of the oil lines, when Duane's voice crackled through the radio. "Jamie, there's someone here asking for you. Says he used to work the ranch." Jamie wiped his hands on a rag, eyebrows raised. Another old-timer looking for closure, or maybe answers. With the strange history of Blind Frog Ranch, former workers were rarely casual visitors. Minutes later, Jamie stood outside the operations trailer as a figure emerged from the shadows of a beat-up old truck. He was tall, lean, and wore a battered cowboy hat that seemed older than time. His beard was a wiry thicket of gray, and his eyes were sharp and unsettled, like a man who had seen things and never quite left them behind. "I'm Illy," he said, voice raspy. "Used to work here, long before y'all bought it." Jamie extended a cautious hand. "You said you had a story to tell," Ellie nodded. "More than a story, a warning." The ranch before the myths. They sat inside the trailer, the hum of generators mixing with the quiet tapping of the rain. Eli sipped black coffee, staring into it as if it might reveal the past. "This ranch was different when I worked here, back in '91. It belonged to a man named McBride. Old money. He didn't care about treasure. He wanted the uranium." Jamie leaned in. "There's uranium on the property." "There was," Eli muttered. "McBride had geologists. Drills. We pulled samples from deep below the cave system. But one shaft, the one nearest the frog pond, always resisted. Machinery failed. We had cave-ins. A man died. We thought it was bad luck. But it wasn't." He paused, face haunted. "That shaft was where things started." The Descentales story unspooled slowly, like a minecart creaking down a forgotten track. McBride's obsession deepened when a drill bit brought up more than rock. There were black stones, carved and slick, etched with symbols that no one recognized. He brought in archaeologists. They wouldn't return. Eli recalled one night vividly. We were lowering lights into the shaft, and something came up. Not a thing you could see, but you felt it. Pressure, like the air turned to syrup. Our generator shorted out. When the lights blinked back, George, one of the crew, was gone. Harness snapped clean like fishing line. Jamie's jaw tightened. "You think he fell?" Ellie shook his head. "We searched. No body. No scream. Nothing." After that, half the crew walked off the job. McBride refused to leave. One night, Eli was ordered to keep watch over the shaft. He wanted someone there at all times, like it was alive. I brought a dog with me. Old Red. Good boy. Loyal. He went silent for a moment. Something pulled Red down into the hole. No sound. Just gone. The Blackwater Ellie stood and pulled a worn notebook from his coat. Inside were rough sketches, maps, strange carvings, and water analysis reports. One of McBride's scientists tested the water near the shaft, said it wasn't normal. Some kind of microbial makeup they hadn't seen before. Almost alive. The water ran black at night. Literally black, like oil. Jamie flipped through the notebook. "Is this swamp gas? Volcanic bacteria?" "I don't know," Eli said. "But I drank from that water once. And I had dreams. Vivid, real ones. Underground cities. Men in gold masks. A throne of bones." Jamie raised an eyebrow. "You think that was from the water?" "I know it was," Eli said, face pale. "Because McBride drank it too. And he changed. McBride's descent into madness. McBride grew reclusive, paranoid. He sealed off the shaft and fired the last of his workers. Eli stayed, mostly out of curiosity and guilt. Sometimes I'd hear him talking to someone in the tunnels, but he was alone. Then came the final night. I found McBride in the cave. He'd reopened the shaft. The walls were glowing faintly, blue, like bioluminescence. He had carved the same symbols we found on the stones into his skin. Jamie leaned back, chilled. He said, "They're under us. Always have been. The gold is a lie. They guard something else." Ellie left that night and never came back, until now. The present Dangda Jimmy rubbed his temples, thinking of their recent failures. Drills that jammed. Equipment that vanished. Chad swore he saw shadows that didn't belong to anyone. And the mysterious metal box they found, sealed and unmovable, humming in the cold. Eli placed a final item on the table. A rusted key with a symbol etched into the handle. The same design they had uncovered on a tablet last season. I found this wedged behind an old wall. It wasn't meant to be found. Jamie hesitated. Why now? Why come back? Ellie's eyes were steel. Because whatever McBride woke up, it's stirring again. And you boys are getting too close. Into the forgotten shaft the team decided to investigate. After triangulating from his hand-drawn map and drone footage, Chad and Jamie located a moss-covered depression in a remote section of the property. Covered in brush, it had gone unnoticed by modern surveys. They descended, lights piercing the darkness. The air was heavy, silent. 40 feet down, they found the remnants of an old rig, and the shaft itself, lined in ancient stone, unlike any geological layer in Utah. Jamie's radio buzzed. "Guys," Duane said from base camp, "I'm getting seismic anomalies. Something's moving below you." Suddenly, Chad froze. His headlamp had caught something. A stone carving. Fresh. Recent. It was Jamie's face. The awakening as they backed away from the shaft, the humming returned. Low and deep, like something waking beneath centuries of rock. The walls around them began to vibrate. From the shaft came a strange fog, metallic smelling and cold. Jamie turned to Chad. "Get out. Now." Back on the surface, Eli was already waiting, his eyes scanning the sky. "You've disturbed it, didn't you?" "We found your shaft," Jamie confirmed. "I told you not to go near it." Eli's voice cracked with dread. "Now you've marked yourself." Jamie looked at the carving in the photo Chad took. The face wasn't just his, it was etched in a scream. The final warning. Eli stayed one more night at the ranch, watching the mountains from a firelit perch near the original shaft entrance. As dawn broke, he turned to Jamie one last time. "This land doesn't want to give up its secrets. You think it's gold you're after. But the gold is just bait. It's been drawing men like flies for centuries." Jamie nodded, not in agreement but in understanding. "We're not stopping," he said. "But we'll tread carefully." Ellie offered the faintest of smiles. "Just be ready. When you finally find what's down there, it may not want to be found." And with that, Eli got in his truck and disappeared down the long road out of Blind Frog Ranch, leaving Jamie and his crew with more questions than answers, and a story that felt less like history and more like prophecy. And seen as Jamie stood overlooking the shaft at sunset, the wind howled through the canyons. Somewhere below, something stirred. And for the first time, he truly wondered, was this expedition a quest for riches or a descent into something far older and far more dangerous? Coming this season on Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch. The Utah sun beat down hard on the rust-colored soil of Blind Frog Ranch. Jamie lay beneath the belly of the backhoe, tightening bolts and checking hydraulic fluid, when Duane's voice cracked over the radio. "Jamie, you might want to come up here." Got a guy at the gate. Says he used to work here. Claims he's got a story you'll want to hear. Jeremy rolled out from under the machine, wiped the sweat from his brow, and squinted up the hill toward the entrance. Strangers weren't uncommon at Blind Frog Ranch. Curiosity seekers, treasure hunters, or conspiracy theorists, but something in Duane's voice made him pause. Minutes later, Jamie stood at the gate, facing a wiry man in his late 60s. His jeans were sun-bleached, boots scuffed, and his Stetson looked like it had been through at least 3 lifetimes. "You Jamie?" the man asked, his voice gravel and wind. "Yeah." "Who are you?" "Name's Roy Carver. I worked this ranch back in '93. Long before you boys started digging up ghosts. I figured you'd want to hear what happened back then, before someone else makes the same mistakes." Jamie raised an eyebrow. "What kind of mistakes?" Roy glanced at the hills behind the ranch house, his eyes suddenly distant. "The kind that don't let you sleep right anymore." Inside, the Quonset Hathi sat across from each other at the long metal table in the Quonset hut. The air inside was cool, but a certain tension crackled like static. Roy pulled a folded map from his back pocket, hand-drawn, aged, and smeared with oil. "We called it Section 7, he said, pointing to a southern parcel. "That's where it started." "Started?" Jamie echoed, intrigued. Roy nodded. "I was part of a survey crew. We were hired by a fella named Clyde Remick, a prospector who bought up land here looking for natural gas. Found something else instead." Jamie leaned in. "What did you find?" "An opening in the rock, hidden behind a wall of brush and loose stone. We thought it was just a collapsed haven from an old mine, but it wasn't. There was no blasting residue, no mining equipment nearby. It looked deliberate. Sealed."